It's a huge honour for me to be here. It's just marvellous, and thanks very, very much for including me in your programme. I've written here in bold, tell stories. So I want to tell the story of what happened to me, because some of you probably know that I was your typical liberal, your typical European liberal, with all that goes with that, and all that nonsense, not very, very long ago. And I think it's important for conservatives to tell stories because you've all the best stories. You have all the best stories, but you don't tell them. And I don't understand why not. And as somebody coming from the liberal background, the liberals are great at telling stories, and their stories are usually lies. And they get them printed in the New York Times, and on CNN, and everywhere else, and the BBC, and no one, and it's so conservatives have got to start telling stories. So I want to tell a few stories. I first of all want to tell a story about Mind Your Own Business, which is the story that changed my life, basically, and it's the reason why I'm here. I lived in Romania, and I was a freelance journalist, so I was a big, media whore, basically. I'd write anything for anyone. So I just did stories about anything for anyone. And I was just constantly looking to try and find stories and sell them. And it's a very tough game, that, actually. And this story came up about a Canadian mining company, evil Canadian mining company, of course, who were going to have the largest gold mine in Transylvania. And I can remember going up on the train, and as Phelim says, we were going up on the train to this place in Transylvania, and we had the story written. Evil mining company, innocent natives being taken advantage of, rape, pillage, the whole business. And we went up, and everything about the story that we presumed was wrong. So suddenly we meet these Canadians who actually have this great story to tell. They're going to do this really great thing. Now, they're going to take the village, and they're going to destroy the village. The village is going to be gone. And so they've said to people who live in appalling homes, really frightening, no electricity, no running water, just horrible. They say to them, we're going to destroy your lovely home, and here's where you're going to move to. And they built a model home in the village and said, this is the kind of place you're going to live in. They showed them. And the model home was stunning. It was like, when I grow up, I'd love to live in a house like that. So inside, we went into the house and we started meeting the locals. And there was an old lady in there in her 70s. And her eyes, she was crying. And I said to her, what's the story here? What are you crying about? And she said, I just hope I get to live long enough to live in a house like this. And I would say she's dead now. And that mine has not opened. And two women, a woman from Brussels and a woman from Switzerland, took it upon themselves to go there and destroy the hopes of that village. And they're environmentalists. And when you have a story like that happen to you, and the 27-year-old man who features in the film, George, who is still unemployed, who lives in a one-bedroom apartment with his 4 adult brothers and sisters and his parents, you work out that yourselves, how that's done. And one person in that family earns a living, the father, and he earns $200 a month. Work all of that out for yourselves. And 2 women who've only ever known wealth in their whole lives are single-handedly responsible for destroying that man's vision and his dreams for himself and the hope of working in a wonderful company that would give him a career. It's so easy to convert yourself after that. I stood there and I thought, God, when I was a child, when I was going to school, I was really into human rights. I mean, that's the kind of thing young people are really into, and I'm still the very same person. It's the kind of thing that fires you up. You want to change the world, make a difference. And if you go into a situation like that, a story like that, you can't be not altered by it. And I mean, I was like, these shackles came off my eyes, and I suddenly thought, my God, capitalism is beautiful. Capitalism is great. Capitalism is the only thing that cares about the poor. Capitalism is the only thing that can bring poor people into this amazing world. And this world is amazing. And America is amazing. America is just, it's breathtaking what this country achieves. It's breathtaking what this country represents. And I love America. God, I love America. And anyone who doesn't love America, like Hollywood, need to be taken on. So I'm going to be giving you a job today. So I wanted to first of all tell you that story of Mind Your Own Business. We are incredibly proud of Mind Your Own Business. I know some of you guys have seen it. And anytime I see it, because sometimes we go places and we show it and we do talks and stuff, I swear to God, when I come to the end of it, I really cry. I get so upset for George, who is there in Roche, Montana, in the middle of nowhere in Transylvania, with no hope. And 2 women, 2 environmentalists did that to him. And they move on, and they'll go on to their next thing. And the Goldman Foundation, who some of you guys know, out of San Francisco, gave them a prize of $250,000 for doing that and ruining those people's lives. So I have a thing about environmentalists now. So what happened then immediately after that was, by the way, John Fund has described me as the most fabulous mess of a speaker he's ever come across. I like the fact that he put in fabulous there, but I am a bit messy, and I do ramble on, and people have to tell me about the time. So what happened immediately after that was, I started getting emails from people all over the world, people who saw Mind Your Own Business, and they said, have you heard about DDT? And I hadn't heard about DDT. And I got in a taxi today, and I met a man from the Sudan, and he hadn't heard about DDT. And you know why he hasn't heard about DDT? Because the New York Times never tell you about DDT, and CNN don't, and BBC. And you know, one of the criticisms we have about the film is they think people say to us, the title isn't strong enough. They are evil. They are evil and wrong. And you see, I'm a recovering European, so we're still trying to be polite and nice and, inclusive and stuff like that, so we kind of keep the title as not evil, but, just wrong. But what do you think of a world where the BBC and CNN, who command, as a journalist, I worked for the BBC at one stage. If you go into a room, if you go anywhere in the world and you work for the BBC, it is the most amazing privilege. Everyone will talk to you. You can go anywhere. But with that privilege comes responsibility. And you have you've got to take that privilege very seriously. I'm a recent journalist, by the way. I'm only a journalist for about 7 or 8 years. Journalism is just fabulous. And I don't know if the little girl that I met last night, Catherine, are you here from Arizona? Good girl, excellent. There we go. This is the hope of the future here. But journalism is an extraordinary privilege. But you've got to tell the truth. And you know something? It's so easy to keep your story straight if you tell the truth. Now, where am I going? DDT. If you ever watch any reports on the television about malaria, and this, I think, is evil. The BBC did a very lengthy, what they call a magazine piece. You know this thing, like a magazine piece, like 7 or 8 minutes long, which is very, very long for a piece, about malaria, because malaria is a huge problem in the world. And they never even mentioned DDT. They didn't even mention DDT. Jeffrey Sachs wrote a book about ending poverty. He doesn't even mention DDT. DDT, according to the World Health Organization, is the cheapest, safest, most effective way of stopping children dying of malaria. And they don't even mention it. CNN don't even mention it. In our film, so here, as I said, I'm a bit of a mess. In our film, I presume, everyone nod, you all know the DDT story. Yes, well, I'm going to show a clip about DDT in a moment. And that's going to upset the guy up there who I told I was going to do it the other way. I'm actually going to do the DDT piece first, and then I'm going to do the other piece. CO2 is the new DDT. So Rachel Carson and her band of merry followers managed to convince the world that DDT was a bad thing, because environmentalists don't like chemicals. I love chemicals. Bring it on. I love chemicals. The word natural. Who wants natural? I want unnatural. I want everything unnatural. Guess what's natural? Anthrax is natural. Cancer is natural. Who wants that? Natural is not a good thing. Natural is not a good thing. TB, malaria. This is not stuff anyone wants in their lives. So environmentalists are very funny. They like nature and they like the past. And I love to say this. The past is rubbish. The past is appalling. No one wants to go there. If you had the choice, if you could go there on holidays, you'd never go. Ask my mother, who buried 2 of her brothers from TB. No one dies of TB in Ireland now. She buried 2 of her brothers. She took a year off and nursed a brother through TB until he died. And that doesn't happen anymore. Because of unnatural things. Chemicals bring them on. Bring them on. Give me the drugs. I want all the drugs. I want all the chemicals. And people live to be in their 90s. My father is 90. He has just had a hip replacement. How unnatural is that? Winner. And he's almost, oh my God, I swear to God, he's like Riverdance now. So DDT, I really will show the parts of the film, by the way. I really need to remember to do that. The DDT story, the malaria story, again, I have a problem getting upset about this. If these children were dying in Pennsylvania, we'd have tonloads of DDT being used everywhere. And I don't know if this is racism. I don't know. But I think environmentalists have a very funny attitude to Africa. People in Africa who live in mud huts don't like it. They don't want to live in mud huts. They'd really like to live in Connecticut. They would really like to live in a 7-bedroom house with 7 bathrooms. They would really like air conditioning. They would really like to get their hair done. They'd really like to go to the opera. They'd really like to sit on a hammock and drink Chardonnay. Because we're all the same. And anyone who thinks we're not the same is possibly evil.